Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to BerryBot 3D. It's been a while since I did a video and I apologize for that. I've been busier than heck helping other people build 3D printers, actually having a bunch of fun doing it. So many really cool people out there in this community, and I've really enjoyed getting to know some of them and helping them build printers. I've got a list of a few things that I want to talk to you about. One of them is the counterweight system that I've had on the 3D Pro. It's been on there ever since the beginning. The original didn't have it, but the 3D Pro did, and I think it's a really great benefit. Fusion 360, which I've been playing around with and actually did my new sign in. It's got a bunch of neat features, and it's something definitely that you should take a look at. You know, we've got a lot of options for modeling nowadays. We got SketchUp, Onshape, Fusion now, and of course SolidWorks. SolidWorks is really expensive, so it's not an option for most people. Fusion, however, is really exciting, and for me, being a machinist, I like the fact that I can do the modeling and the cam all in the same program. So that's something that's really cool that you should check out. We'll talk a little bit about it, maybe take a look at the program on the computer. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Berry extruder, give you a few tips and tricks for that. And I've printed a lot of things lately that I'd like to share. Some of them are really cool. You know, I'm always building things for my shop. I've built a whole bunch of stuff for my shop, so I'll show you some of those things. We'll talk just briefly about Simplified 3D and how it can interface with Fusion to export your models automatically with just the click of a button. I'm going to give you a tip that my son came across. This is probably going to be the best tip you get all year. And for those of you that like building big models, this is going to be a game changer for you. I'm also going to share a spool holder that I just recently printed, and the thing I like about it that makes it special is that it works with any spool. So that's something I'm going to go ahead and put the STL models up on the website, and I'll show it to you and let you take a look. If there's enough interest, I might put a kit together and make it available just for the hardware, and then you guys could print out the STL models yourself and have at it. Anyways, got a lot of things to talk about, so sit back, get something to drink, and let's talk 3D printing. Hey guys, here we are in Fusion 360 by Autodesk, and this part here is actually the very first thing that I ever designed and 3D printed in Fusion. What this is it's some ducting for a vacuum. I have a saw that I use specifically for cutting the carbon rods to length, and that carbon dust is really nasty stuff, so I wanted to make a very special little duct to catch all that fine dust, and this thing just worked and printed out beautifully, and was actually really quite easy to design in Fusion. To give you an idea of how I went about it, a lot of these locations, these faces and stuff were very specific, and I'll show you an image of the actual saw with this thing installed so you can see what I was talking about. But just to give you an idea, you can see these planes here were at specific locations. So what I did is I went ahead and created those planes so that I could locate sketches on top of those and have those locations very specific. This is kind of where the things, as you build, these are the things, they end up over here on this side. But you also have a history down here on the bottom, you can see. In this history you can roll back and to a specific point, and I'll go ahead and I'll play it. It's got a little player here so you can actually see the process of there we go. So anyways, yeah, it turned out pretty cool. You know, it's this program I think is a lot easier to learn without a doubt than SolidWorks. SolidWorks is so complex that it literally took me years to really master it. And this program, I had spent a few evenings and a couple of weekends playing around with it, and I was able to go ahead and start doing some pretty complex stuff. I even have the BerryBot programmed in here, and you can see, I mean, with the motion of all these joints and stuff, it can do some pretty complex things and do it quite well. One thing I was telling you about was, for example, on the this button up here where it says make, what you can do is you can set this up so that it'll automatically export the STL right into your slicing software. You know, I use Simplified 3D, but I've also got Cura and Repetier Host, and it automatically loaded those two in here. But the cool thing about it is that you can, right here, you pretty much, it's top-down logic, you know, on all these windows. It's kind of good to pay attention from the top and work your way down as you're using Fusion. Because right here, see this blue is, if you just, it doesn't give you the OK, you know, button is not lit because it wants you to select. Once it does that, it'll go ahead and create the mesh for the object, and then it'll give you the OK button, which you can go ahead and click. And then what it'll do is it'll just open it up right in Simplified and drop your part right there. And as you can see, it's right there. Now I brought it in kind of funky. One thing you can do in Simplified 3D is you can go up here to edit. You can drop, let's see, it's place surface on bed. Click that, and then just pick a triangle that you want to be flat on the bed, and it'll go ahead and do that for you. Hey guys, I just thought I would take a couple minutes to talk briefly about Simplified 3D. I could literally do a tutorial for a whole day talking about this program, but I really like it, and I'll just show you some of my processes of using the software. As this model that we imported, I'll show you as an example. The very first thing you do is you go ahead and you come in here and you import your models. So you just, and you can drop and drag them too as well, right into the space. You add and remove with these two buttons over here, and you can center and arrange your model with this button here. One of the first things you'll need to do is you'll need to go up here and you'll need to set your preferences in the tools options. This is where you set all your machine preferences and millimeters per second or minute and all these things. You can program your buttons for panning and zooming in this area as well. So you just pretty much, you got to go through this the very first thing and get that set up. Once you do, the process is pretty simple. You can drop and drag your parts on here or import them, center and arrange them. Over here on the far right hand side, you can see we've got a bunch of buttons over here. This is just a regular selection button, and 90% of the time you'll just have that one picked. You can also position your model very specifically in one of the axes with this button, and what that'll do is that'll go ahead and allow you to position your model very specifically in 3D space, directly on the axes. I don't ever use this one, but wow, that's pretty cool. You can, if you want to change the scale for some reason, you can do that. Also, don't forget Control-Z works in Simplified 3D as well. You can go ahead and rotate your model around using this tool. To get regular positions of your model, or standard positions of your model, you can use these buttons here. I use the top one a lot. If I got a whole bunch of parts located on the Platen, I use this one to position the model. Don't forget too, you can use Control and the mouse, left mouse button to position your model. So if you have a lot of them, for example, we'll go up here to edit, and then we'll go duplicate models. We'll put 3 copies. Now remember, that's 3 copies, so we'll end up with 4 of them. So we got 4 of them on there. You can push the Control key and push all of them, or you can select one. Just select one, push the Control key, and move it around. You can also do Control A, and that'll select all the models so you can manipulate all of them. And if you wanted to get rid of some of these, you can just go ahead and highlight it or select it. Push, let's see, can hold the shift key and it'll allow you to select a group of them, and you can go ahead and just delete that group. Over here you can push the center and arrange. That'll take your model and put it back in the center. A few other things here. You can turn the origin on and off. I always like to have the origin on. I like to be able to see which way it's going to print X and Y. And this can be beneficial. Sometimes you want the model because of the way the infill pattern or whatever, you might want to cant it at 45 degrees. So that's kind of handy to be able to always know which way it's printing on your Platen. You can also turn on the mesh on the exterior of the model so you can see what it's doing. Let's see. This one most always will be lit. That shows your model. You can also do sections. This is pretty handy if you want to see if you got a really complex model that's got a lot of bosses or whatever on the inside of your part. This is kind of cool. You can select the axes and then you can go ahead and cut slices through it or see sections of it. So that's a really handy feature to have. If your model doesn't show up, you're probably at one end of it clear off of the model, so you can just play around with it, go from one end of the spectrum to the other, and then you can see what it's doing. And you can also reverse the section too with that checkbox there. So that's pretty cool. I'll turn that off. And then you've got this. This is the manual or the machine control panel. And this is if you're going to print directly from the computer. You can go ahead and bring this up, and this gives you all the controls. Another thing that's really cool is it shows in the G-code library, it shows what you've been running. You know, all the models that you've run recently. And you can check out the times, like here's a 10 hour or 10 and a 9 hour. That was a darkroom adapter for my air conditioner. And so it's kind of cool to go back through this every now and again and check it out. Anyways, this is just a regular type control panel. Then the next thing you'll need to do is you'll need to take a look and edit your processes. Once you get your model in, this will be the next thing you want to do. You go ahead and click that button, and this brings up, this is really the bread and butter of the program right here. This is where you can manipulate everything. Now keep in mind there's a lot of profiles already set up in Simplified 3D. So you can go ahead and most often you'll get yourself in the ballpark by just updating the profile, and there's a lot of profiles that are available. You just got to load them in, you know, from Simplified 3D. So you can go ahead and you can get your program set up. You know, you have different profiles in here already for whether you're using the PLA or ABS or NinjaFlex or whatever. And then makes it easier. You can just go ahead and click your profile, click whatever the material is, and then start going ahead and manipulating all your settings. Extruder, this is your tools, your extruder tools, so you can set the nozzle diameter. Extrusion multiplier, this is something you need to, this is for the feed of the extrusion, something you need to get set up originally, and then once you get it set, usually just very minor tweaks depending on material that you're using. Extrusion width, this is kind of an important number for how your layers and extrusions will bond to each other. Retraction distance, I usually like to have a little bit of retraction distance. 0 on the restart. I also like this retraction vertical. When you're printing really fast, this is good to have this at some number of maybe 0.2 to 0.3. What that does is that lifts the head so that when you're making really rapid moves, especially if you got dual extruders on your end effector, you know, because of the weight and because you're moving so fast, if it tips just very slightly, it could rub across the top of the model. That'll just totally lift it up. Retraction speed. We got layers. This is where you can set your layers. I've been printing a lot at 0.3 for big stuff. You know, when you get your machine all dialed in and super accurate, you can get have higher numbers in here, thicker layer heights, and they still turn out beautiful. You can set how many layers top and bottom you want. First layer, you can adjust your speeds, your percentages. First layer at 50% gives you a little better bonding. This is really a cool thing here, start points. Now see, on an object like this, that's very long and cylindrical, and we've got it pretty much right over the XY coordinates, you can click this to choose a position of 0, 0. What that means is it'll have less moves on the outside of the model when you have it oriented in this case. A lot of times I'll just have optimized. If you got a Berry extruder, you don't have to worry nearly as much about it because it's going to give you really clean breaks. One of the happiest days of my life is when I converted to a direct drive instead of the Bowden cable, because the models just came out absolutely awesome. So those are some things you can play around with there. This is for the skirt, you know, whether or not you're using a raft skirt, you got to use a pillar for multiple extruding heads. Ooze shield, I've never used any of these things over here, but they're there. This is so you can set up your infill, you know what the percentage of infill you want. On this part it would be 100% because we've just got a wall here. There's really no solid. Support structure, we'll go ahead and generate some support for this little shelf right here, and I got it at 30%. A lot of the default settings you'll find work pretty good. This is where you can go ahead and set your temperatures for your primary extruder and the heated bed. You know, you can set those temperatures there, and you can actually change them at a particular layer height. So let's say you're doing something that you want to have much higher temperature, let's say 100 degrees for the first 20 layers, let's say. You can go ahead and adjust that and set this set where it changes and what layer height. My voice is going, sorry about that. I've been on the phone all day and now talking on this doing this video, it's totally going. But anyway, cooling, it's got a lot of adjustments for just about everything you can think of. Scripts, this is where you can have your ending and beginning strip. I have a little script here that'll actually prime my nozzle off of the center of the platen and then go ahead and move to the center and start the part. So that's pretty cool. But anyways, that's the first thing that you'll do is you'll go ahead and get that set up. Now keep in mind that with Simplified 3D you can have multiple processes. So let's say you're printing this model and you want to have a layer height of 0.1 down on this lower portion of the model. You would set up this process right here at 0.1, and then at a certain layer height you can add a new process and go ahead and change your layer height from a certain point on up. And that's just really, really powerful. See, here you go, you can layer modifications so you can add a new process at a different layer height. It's really, really cool. Then the next thing you would do once you've got your processes all done, you could go ahead and take a look at it. Click this Prepare to Print. And what this will do is this will go ahead and create all of your layers for you. In layer mode, click this for make sure you're in layer mode. You can go ahead and drag this across and see what's going to actually happen with all your layers. So it looks like the support looks really good the way it is right now. Now let's say you want to see it's got these couple little things out here. Let's say you want to start manipulating some of this. What you can do is go back into model mode and click this little button over here where it says customize support structure. Go ahead and generate support automatically with this button here. Go ahead and leave these at the default settings. They seem to work pretty good for me, 0.4 and 45 degrees. With a direct Berry extruder, you can get this a little bit lower if you want. You can try around 40 or even 35 degrees. Quite often will work with a really heavy layer of 0.3. But let's say you want to go ahead and manipulate some of these support structures. You want to remove a couple of them. You say, you know what, I don't need this one, this one, this one. What you can do is you can click, and then don't forget, you got Control Z. If you accidentally remove something, you go, oh, maybe I do want to keep those. You can, click, do Control Z and add them right back. Another thing too is you can add support structure. Just go ahead and click Add New Support, so it'll bring you it'll show you the support. You can go, oh, you know, maybe I want one right there, and you can just click and add it, and then you can say done. And then there you go, you've got all your support. Oh, there's some more support I want to get rid of. Go over here to remove, and you can just remove those. So it's really, really flexible. It's really cool to be able to have that kind of control over your support. Then you can go ahead and click prepare to print and take a look at what you've got again. Now notice the first couple layers, because of the way I modeled this, notice it's got a little bit of a bridge right here. See how it's bridging a little bit? The skirt's going across, and then the first layer actually isn't printing. It's got support over here. What you can do, let's say you wanted to just bring this down just a little bit. What you could do is double click on the model, and then it brings you up to this change the offset position. And so let's say you wanted to just drop this down just a little bit. Let's say, oh, that's actually too much. We'll just do it in here. We wanted to drop this down. Instead of 8.2, we'll go to, let's say 6.2. So what that did is dropped it down just a little bit. We'll say done, and then we'll go ahead and prepare to print again. And now we can drop it down and let's see what it did to it. So it did move it down just a little bit. We can do just a hair more. Double click on the model. Go over here and we'll say 0.4. So dropped it down. Go ahead and reprint. And now let's see what we got. Okay, that looks a lot better there. See how it's moved further out. So that's a much better position for printing. So anyways, that's then what you can do is you can go ahead and click right here where it says save toolpath to disk. And otherwise, if you're hooked up, got it directly hooked up through your COM port to the computer, you can just print right from the computer. I usually, 99.9% of the time, I usually just do it from an SD card. Just works out really super good. So anyways, just wanted to give you just a real quick little primer to Simplified 3D. There's just a ton to go into, really. If you dig in deep, there's a lot to this program. But I hope you enjoyed this part of it, and hopefully it can help you get started with it. Well, here you go, guys. Another great print. We'll see how this support comes out, how easily that pops off. Take it over the bench and we'll check it out. Okay guys, over here at the bench we'll see how easily this support structure comes out. This was all sliced with Simplified 3D and turned out really nice. This was the first part that I've actually printed using Fusion 360. So let's see how this stuff comes out of here. So far so good. Oh man, that almost came out too easy. Wow. So there it is. Nice and clean. Goes all the way through there. So now I'll show you how this is going to hook up on the saw and how this is all going to work. Wow, really happy with the print. Very nice. Alright, let's take a look. That couldn't have come out any easier. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the BerryBot 3D channel. A couple of you have asked or inquired about my counterweight system for my BerryBot 3D Pro printer. And so I thought I'd just take a minute to explain how I did it, and you might be able to use the idea on your printer. What I've got on this rear column is I've got a cover that I'll go ahead and pop off. And you'll see the counterweight is right behind it. So with the cover removed, you can see that my lead counterweight's right here. Now I fabricated this, made this counterweight out of sheet lead that you can buy at quite a few metal supply houses along with McMaster Carr. What's nice about the lead sheet, you can get it with already adhesive on one side, and or just go ahead and install your own adhesive, but you can easily cut it with a utility knife so you can manufacture it to specifically fit your printer. The way it works is that I've got an electrical ring terminal that's mounted to the Berry extruder, and if you take a look, this screw is specifically left long on the Berry extruder, and what that does is it allows you just to hook the ring terminal on that screw. So changing out the end effector takes just a couple of seconds. You just unclip it and you can pull it off. This is a Dacron fish line. It's about 60-pound fish line, and it goes up through a nylon grommet. Again, these are things that can be purchased at McMaster Carr. Goes up through the center and then comes through the fascia through another grommet and then down to the counterweight. Now this, I've also got all my wiring harnesses hidden behind this cover as well. So, there's a few benefits to doing the counterweight. One is that the motors are a little more quiet because you can run less current. It takes a little bit of weight off the end effector, so that if you have dual extruders, or if you've got a real heavy assembly in the end effector, it can counter that, so you don't have to worry about your end effector drooping when power is removed. And the motors should last longer too, having less current going through them. So I think increased speeds, having it quieter, and having the motors last longer, I think that's a win-win-win. But it's a pretty simple thing to implement, and I think it's really beneficial. I hope you guys can give it a try. Go ahead and just put it back together here. That's that. Here we go, guys. This is my new spool holder. That's working out really cool. And the thing I like about it, these spools have different diameters and different widths, and so I really wanted to get something that would work with everything that I use. And this is the solution that I came up with. These are the 3D printed, just the little side pieces, and then it's just got a couple of 5/16 stainless steel dowels with these flanged bearings. Now the flanged bearings, this side of the flanged bearing has got a little speck of super glue or Loctite to hold it, and then the other one is adjustable. So this can adjust to whatever size spool you have. You just line it up on the fixed one and then drop that one in, and use these little binder clips just to keep it in alignment. Since the flange is on the inside of the spool, it just sits there and it spins on it. So it doesn't matter if you have a wide spool like that. See, this is, oh, by the way, Hatchbox. I've been running a lot of this filament lately, and it's working out really great. You can get it on Amazon. It's only like 22 bucks a spool, and it's really nice material. Anyways, even if you have a thinner or more of a standard size spool, you just go ahead and bring it in to that size, and it works perfect. So see, Hatchbox actually has a weird diameter too. It's not the standard 2-inch. It's some weird 1 1/4 or something. So the nice thing about this little unit is that it'll work with anything that's out there. And I just have mine sitting up on top of the printer, but it could easily be sitting on the side or wherever you want, and works really great. So again, these are just little flanged bearings here. And works really good. Okay, this is the hot tip that my son discovered. And I'm quite an enthusiast when it comes to adhesives and chemicals and that kind of thing. For years and years, ever since I was a kid, I've been using these catalyst type super glues, Zap and Zap-A-Gap and whatnot, and they work really great. But when it comes to gluing plastic, they will work. But this is something that just takes it to a whole new level. This literally works at a molecular level. It's amazing, this particular type. Now, Loctite makes a lot of different super glues, and they've got a lot of different part numbers, and I've played around with a lot of them. For example, here's a couple of them. You know, these are a couple other super glues made by Loctite, but this is not the same as this. This particular one right here is amazing, and you just absolutely have to try it in order to see what I'm talking about. It goes a long way. You can actually kick it off with an accelerator like the others, but there's something different about this particular glue, especially with PLA and ABS. It's remarkable. I'll show you some images of a big project. My son made a stormtrooper helmet from Star Wars, and you know, that thing had like 16 or more pieces in it, and it's full scale. He made it from multiple pieces, but it's a full scale helmet, and he glued the whole thing together with this, and it's just, you know, he's had it at his dorm room, and you know, kids have played around with it and stuff, and it's amazing. It's just, it holds up just unbelievably. So I'll go ahead and I'll publish the actual part number for this. Probably the easiest way to get it is probably to order it online. Some Home Depots will actually carry this particular one. A lot of the Home Depots will only have, you know, this kind, but it's not quite the same. So anyways, this is the hot tip for the week. While we're on the topic of adhesives and chemicals and whatnot, something else I want to mention that's pretty cool is this stuff here, this epoxy sculpt. This has been around for quite a while. There's a lot of different companies that make stuff that's similar to this, and they're all very similar in the way they work. This is one of the ones that I like the best, and it's available in a lot of different colors. But it's a two-part epoxy paste, and what you do is you just mix up each of the parts and knead them with your fingers. Make sure you're wearing some good gloves, and you just knead the stuff for a couple minutes, and then you can use it on your models. For models that you need to get perfect, like if you're making a I use it sometimes when I'm making plugs for vacuum forming parts. I'll 3D print the plug, and a lot of times I'll do a little bit of work to it, or maybe put multiple pieces together. I can create fillets with this particular stuff here, and it's sandable and machinable, which is really cool. One of the projects that I've been working on is a kind of a fun project. This is a big huge lamp. It's the Pixar lamp. And so this is one of the projects that I'll be using that. So this is the lamp from Pixar here, and this is one of the projects that I'll be painting up. But you know, that filler is really great for this kind of thing. I'm gonna put an LED light source in here, but anyways, pretty cool. Here are some things I printed recently for my shop. These were a bunch of clips that I have on my CNC router to hold all the tubes and hoses. A bunch of tools on my tool wall. Sure makes things easy to keep organized when you have something like this. There's always a place for your tools to go. Makes cleanup a breeze because you know exactly where they need to go. Bunch of holders there for my squares, the levels. This was that ducting for my air conditioner. It's an air conditioner that pumps from my garage into my darkroom, and I've got a developer in there that gets pretty hot, and so I made a duct to pump the air out, and this little thing really worked out cool. Those little spring clamps you saw really work great when you're gluing these parts together. I just put a little bit of foam around it to seal it up against the wall and up against the unit.
It just turned out really great. That's got a compound curve on it. That'd be pretty tough to do without having it 3D printed. This is a really cool foot pedal I made for my sink in the shop. Just welded up a really nice stainless steel sink, and this is hooked up to a solenoid. So I can just push this. If my hands are all oily from machining, I can just push it and wash my hands off. Of course, I had to make a custom soap dish, green to match the lava soap that I like to use. This is a picture of that vent for my darkroom. It's actually pretty large and really works out good. Being that it's black, it blocks out all the light, keeps light from going in. This is a little dish. The image is not real great, but a little holder actually for a brush I use just for cleaning coffee cups and stuff. Here's a whole bunch of little parts for a fixture. It's actually a fixture that I use for holding my TIG welding rods. Those are 2.5-inch ABS pipes, and I use those little spacers in between and glued them up with that Loctite glue. And man, I tell you what, it just worked amazing. Once I had it all glued up, I just mounted it up underneath one of my racks and really made it nice and organized. These are all the pieces for my son's big project, that helmet, and it turned out so cool. There's no processing. He just pretty much glued it together. He didn't do any kind of processing to the helmet. This is just the way it was when it was glued. Turned out really cool. These are some of the letters for my sign, and you'll notice the white is what I printed first, about 3 layers, and then I just changed the color on the fly, and it worked out really slick. This is the part that says shopspt.com. Laid down the white, then I switched out to black, and then switched out to blue for a bit, and then went back to black. This is came right off of the printer, just a solid color orange for my name. This is the triangular piece on my sign, and I printed this with Color Fab's XT, the clear, and it's actually pretty neat material. It's almost like a mix between ABS and PLA. It's really liquid when it prints. It's like very viscous, and it does warp just a little bit, more similarly to ABS than PLA, but it did a nice job with the print. I made 4 of these panels. My sign's actually 30 inches long. Doesn't look like it, but it is. And so I glued this together with that Loctite super glue, and man, it just really worked slick. This beautiful little Delta printer belongs to a friend of mine named Vitaly. He contacted me a few months ago and asked me if I could help him make some parts for his printer rebuild project. And so I ended up making him a set of carriage plates and end effector that are slightly smaller in size to the Berry Bot Pro. This has got a center-to-center distance of 37 millimeters on the carbon rods. He did a really beautiful job with it. He utilizes a micro center Winbook to control it, and also has a PandaCat Vicky LCD control panel on it. I have made 2 sets of carriage plates for him. One set utilizes the CME CNC cheapskate rollers, and the other set utilizes open builds, mini V wheels. I also ended up making 2 end effectors for him. One utilizes my standard Berry extruder, and the other one is set up to use an E3D Chimera or Cyclops hot end. So he's really got the best of both worlds now. 90% of the time he'll probably just use the single extruder, Berry extruder, and then when he does want to do multicolor or dissolvable support structure, he can use his Chimera. The one thing that never gets old is when I hear from guys that I've helped build parts for, and they get their first print laid down. The excitement in their voice or their email after they get their first print is really awesome, and really what I do it for. As you can see from the pictures that Vitaly sent me of this little Yoda, he's laying down some really nice layers. He did this one here, sliced it with Simplified 3D and printed it in ABS at 0.2 millimeter height and 80 millimeters per second. Did a really beautiful print. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in to the BerryBot 3D channel. I really enjoy doing these videos for you. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up, and better yet, share it with your friends. Until next time, happy printing.